Welcome. I guess everybody has to click that now. Good morning. Welcome to our monthly Clarity First conversation. It's still a little earlier in the week, a Tuesday morning conversation, and we're excited to have you here. I'm going to flip over here and share our presentation this morning. And once again, thankful to be here and to see you guys jumping in with us on a Tuesday morning. Well, welcome to the Planning Tomorrow Today Clarity First conversation with me, Brian Rose, and Jim Randall. We're excited to help leaders rise above and lead beyond the week-to-week crush. So here's the first thing I want you to do. Drop your name, city, state in the chat. Some of you have already done that. I've gotten to see some of you checking in there, some friends, and would love for you to do that. If you're watching this on the replay, obviously there's not a chat, but we still want to know you're around, and so we'd love to see that. If you want a listening guide for our conversation today, this QR code will allow you to download it. So you can hit the QR right there if you got your phone handy, and it'll put a PDF in there for you that it's a following along listening guide. We'll also put the listening guide in a follow-up email, so you can get this one-page PDF, just some thoughts, principles, some tomorrow questions today, or today's tomorrow question for you to do that. So it'll be a good conversation. So hit that QR code and download the listening guide PDF if you're there. Well, I want to introduce my co-speaker today, my co-host on this podcast, Auxano's CEO and co-founder, Jim Randall. Jim, give me a highlight of the past week or so. What you've been up to in your consulting lately?
Good morning, Brian. Good seeing you again. And I feel like it's been a while since we've connected. It feels like it's been since midweek last week, as we have been serving the church. Let's see, in the last week or so, from Atlanta to Nashville to West Coast, and heading back out first thing in the morning to serve as well, and then wrapping up this week in Orlando. So it's been a busy week serving churches and working with churches, and quite frankly, right here in the midst of what we're talking about today, because I would say that this talk today doesn't get any more timely. Not just in our ministry and what we're doing here in Auxano, but more importantly, what's happening in the life of the church. And so yeah, this matter of fact, if I were to share with you something, I've been serving and working with a church in Orlando, and as we are talking about their vision for the future, it's been really cool to be with a church that starts to identify some very specific language that just absolutely fits them for their vision for the next 7 years or so for their congregation. And they talk about being a community hub to help children and families that are facing these real life issues that are happening in their families and in the lives of their kids, and leading them to a place where there is healing in the home, right? Mm-hmm. And when you get the privilege, like we do, Brian, week in and week out, as we travel, as we just mentioned, to be able to serve churches, to be able to help them to identify that type of focus, that type of vision for the future, and then to begin to kind of restructure who they are around it, it gets pretty exciting. How about you, man? What you been up to this last week?
Yeah, well, I was also on the West Coast, totally different trip, but I was also on the West Coast. It was a lot of fun. I was out there with the board of trustees for a denominational missions organization, Jim. And just like you said, walking through exactly what we're talking about today, planning tomorrow today with this board of trustees, and walking through process. Here's what I love about it. I mean, Jim, we've worked together with a $300 million nonprofit. I was with a $30 million missions organization, and what we're doing is scalable down to a 300 member church or 30 person small business. I mean, there's a complete scalability. Most of our work is with churches, but the ability to lean in with a board of trustees, with a nonprofit organization like that, was really fun. And just my favorite part, Jim, is seeing the light bulb go off, right? Seeing the light
Yeah,
bulb
yeah.
go off in people's minds of,
It's the
oh,
breakthrough
this is a
breakthrough
dream.
clarity. It's the
Yeah, that
breakthrough
breakthrough
clarity part,
clarity.
right?
That's what we call it. And
Right,
the reason the
right.
reason I get a kick out of it is because, unfortunately, especially in the church world, that's so driven by the Sunday's coming crush, right?
Yeah,
I
right.
have to get everything ready for Sunday. The reason I love it so much is when that light bulb goes off, people begin to think beyond the moment, think beyond that crush. It's a key. And so that's really, Jim, the heart behind today is
Yeah,
really
yeah.
seeing that light bulb come off. And this question comes up as a piece of that.
Yeah, and really, honestly, the premise of the entire talk today is a timely talk for these reasons, and it really is this thought here, right? Are you so caught up in the urgent that you never invest in the important? And in the circle, the cycle of church life or ministry year, we always find these two windows that are just our 2 to 3 windows that are incredibly insane. One is that ministry year kickoff, right? That happens sometime pre-Labor Day, post-Labor Day, within that window of August to September that we're right in the middle of right now. And then the second one's the Christmas season, and the third one is usually around the Easter season, post Easter, pre-Mother's Day, right? And we just become so caught up in what is urgent. We like to call that, or I like to call that, the whirlwind of ministry.
Yeah.
When we do think holes, we talk about how leaders get caught in a ministry treadmill, which is another great analogy as well. But I love to think about the whirlwind because it's a whirlwind that never stops. Just when you think that you've kind of gotten on the other side of the whirlwind, another one just comes right back because, like you said, we've got to be ready for Sunday, we got to be ready for Wednesday, we got to be ready for Monday, and those things that are so important, those things that are so urgent just really dwarf our ability to plan and to vision for the urgent. And so not only is this a priority for churches, but it's been a priority for us in our almost 20 years that's coming up to help guide churches through that whirlwind. And if you're somewhere out in Oklahoma, we're going to try to help you not get sand in your eyes, I guess, in that whirlwind. Or if it's somewhere in Florida, we're going to try to keep you from getting sheets of rain plastering your face, right? Something to help you through that whirlwind today.
Well, and I think that's the key, is just being able to see beyond, because most of those whirlwinds are just a moment, yet it's one moment after the other after the other. And really to look beyond the moment, to, as we kind of put in the title of this, to plan for tomorrow today is key.
Yeah.
And listen, this can happen in our personal lives as well, not just professionally. And I found for me, if I'm gonna think beyond tomorrow today, if I'm gonna get on that today, I need tools, I need process, I
Yeah.
need something other than just my own resources to lift. I even need someone to speak into that for me too. And so we're going to be talking about writing the story of tomorrow today in this tool, Jim.
Yeah. And that's, I'm excited about it. You guys know, and if you're part of the Exano tribe, we're a process consulting firm and we love making tools. And this tool's one that we have celebrated and have perfected over a 10-year span. And so it's really cool to see how God continues to use it.
Yeah. And so we're going to use this tool. That's going to be the framework of just really unpacking, unrolling 5 priorities. If we're going to plan tomorrow today, we've got to have 5 keys, 5 priorities, 5 things that lead the way with that, Jim. So let's just jump right on in with the first priority to plan tomorrow today.
Okay. So the first one, Brian, is the idea that we, number one, is that we need to navigate to a faraway dream. The first thing we need to do is to navigate to a faraway dream. Brian, I love the way you talk about the idea of dreaming and blue skying and just kind of, what's God's preferred future, right, for our church, a living language that illustrates and anticipates God's better future for our church, right? When we think through this and realize one of the issues that we have as leaders, I want to kind of take us back to a little bit of a bit of a default mindset that is in our training or it's in our experience. And I want to kind of introduce this particular priority with this phrase. I want us to kind of think through this thing. I'm going to even kind of ask another question, right? Do you know the difference between traditional strategic planning and modern vision planning? You know what the difference in those two are? It's the ability to navigate to a faraway dream. You see, because what happens is traditional strategic planning doesn't do that. Traditional strategic planning, you create a punch list of seemingly random projects in hopes that maybe there will be a visible sign or there'll be some type of vision that might emerge. Usually you won't even know that until you're on the other side of it.
Right, right.
Whereas modern vision planning begins with the end in mind. It begins with that faraway dream. Hey, Brian, there's no wonder that churches out there are visionless. It's because they're not navigating to a faraway dream. They're not thinking far enough in advance. I mean, they're not thinking down the road.
It's not, we don't have a compass set far out there to do that. And I think one of the ways to do that, the ways to set that navigational system, that compass, is to ask this question. And the question is, what kingdom win will we celebrate in 2030? And listen, that doesn't have to be 2030 necessarily in that way. It doesn't have to be that specific. It's just anything that's, Jim, 5 or so years in the future, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, this isn't a this isn't dictating a 7-year vision.
Yeah.
This is beginning to say, okay, if we were to think longer down the road, beyond this year, beyond this Sunday, beyond this quarter, beyond this year, if we were to start to think further down the road, what would 2030 look like? We did this when it was 2020, right? We did this at the year 2000. It just gives us something to be thinking about down the road. And Brian, I know you love asking questions like this. I heard you ask a team one time, what are gonna be the headlines in their newspaper that's talked about? So I love the way you do that. Give us an example of a church maybe that you're serving.
I mean, I was just thinking about a church I worked with that launched about, in the late 90s, when a lot of church planting was taking place, and they had this for the city vision, and they articulated a shorter term, not like this 2030, but it was really a 2027 2028 vision of being still for the city after a pandemic and after some leadership transition. They recast a vision of being still for the city and talking about even 100 nights of prayer and worship as they're in a transitional season between senior pastor. And so this navigating this far off dream is, hey, we're still going to be for this city. We're still seeing that happen. And we're going to have 10 mission partners and 100 nights of prayer and worship and 1,000 people connected in there. So it's that beyond the horizon, and you see on the screen there, far off dream that really elevates everybody's sights beyond, okay, just making it to the next Sunday. And I think when you do that, when you have that far off vision, that far off dream that you're navigating to, you have to have some posts along the way, some mile markers along the way, Jim. So that second priority
absolutely
comes right in there.
Yeah. It really does. It really does. And, as you really are thinking through these priorities, you're going to see a flow, as Brian just alluded to. You're going to see a flow that moves through the 1414, which we call our vision planning framework, or the Horizon storyline, which is the narrative that marries to this framework, right? And so you're going to see these priorities parallel with the development of a vision from the top down. And so it truly does begin with that beyond the horizon, like what Brian just shared. So the second priority is the priority to advance through multi-year strategies. And what happens oftentimes in churches that we come across is they oftentimes have an extremely visionary leader that can vision and forecast a beautiful, better tomorrow with a dream 7 years down the road, but they struggle with the key strategies that it will take for them to get there. Or let me rephrase this. They struggle with, as a team, developing the strategies. right? You can have a vision. You can have a vision that's a 7-year vision. You can talk about this story that's going to be in the life of our church for, that's a part of its story for centuries to come in your mind. But if you don't advance through the strategies to make it happen, it'll be a vision that doesn't become reality. It may even be a vision that doesn't even launch, right? And so advancing through multi-year strategies is a critical step, and quite frankly, possibly one of the most critical steps in helping a vision, that dream, that faraway dream, to come to reality. Because now you're going, okay, what are the key strategies? What are the 4 or 5, 3, 4 or 5 strategies that we've got to accomplish in this next season if we're going to make any headway to that faraway dream?
Yeah. Jim, the today's tomorrow question on this is, what big rocks need to be moved?
Yeah.
So if we're gonna navigate toward this dream that's far off in the distance, what are the big rocks that need to be moved? And that looks like in different things in different churches. It may be a building program, maybe paying off debt. There may be some other big like multi-year. It's gonna take some time, and we're definitely doing something. So not only are we dreaming, but we're also doing, right? We're also accomplishing things. What comes to mind for me is a Bible church, McKinney Memorial Bible Church out in Fort Worth, Texas, knew they needed to change their name because they were nowhere near McKinney, Texas, right? So there's some confusion. Right. But in thinking about that far off dream of who they want to be as they're loving next door and launching the next generation, their big rocks had to do with things like building a church network of 75 churches that are cooperating together. Yeah. To reach their community, putting a community group in every one of their neighborhoods around, right? Apprenticing people from the inside out, and even having a holistic missions, strategy to kind of think near and far in those things. And so these are big multi-year, what we call background strategies that they're going to take multiple years to accomplish. They're long range, very strategic. And Jim, you said 3, 4, or 5. And we've seen instances of each, right? The larger organization, the more capacity for that 5th one. I worked with a church of 80 in southwestern Michigan that we said we only need 3, right? Because listen, they just have a limited pool of leadership to do that 3. So those background strategies, as you said, become key to executing that beyond the horizon, right?
Yeah, and that does, Brian, it reinforces the scalability that you began to talk about right early on as far as this tool. And it's literal right now. I literally have churches that have 3 strategies, that have 4 strategies, and that are pursuing 5 strategies. I do think there is in any organization that you can, as those of us that are football fans, you can overpunt your coverage, right? Yeah. And you can try to put so many strategies out there that you don't have the bandwidth to see them through. And so I'm right there with you. I'm thinking of this church up in Spring, Michigan, Arbor Church. And what a great church. And they have this vision. It's a 3D hope. And you know what, I guess right now there's a lot of churches that are, saying, hey, we've got to invest in tomorrow. There's a huge gap that's widening, right, between younger generations and older generations, not just within the local church, but even within religion, and even within having any type of faith formation. And so they talk very much about, having a 3D vision of hope, right, for people, especially children that are underserved. And when they went to their strategies, right, and began to develop that, they began to say, hey, listen, first of all, we gotta have like this opposite pathway that's just killing it. We've got to make sure that we are really training up some people in this, with this tool to with this pathway to help train up kids, like to help grow them up spiritually. One of the other things I love, this is one of their strategies. I'm not going to hit all of them, but one of the ones they put is they want to establish a hope center, right? And it's this place in the middle of their township, not necessarily at their church, because their church isn't necessarily where the need can be most provided for, right? Where it has the, everything from after school programs and tutoring and, everything to serving, whatever it takes to serve underserved children. they said, hey, that is a strategy. That's a bigger strategy. That's not something that's going to get done in the first 3 months of
Right,
the year.
right.
Right.
And so it's important to say that yes, we have to dream. We have to have those big kind of far off things we're navigating to, but we also need some big rocks that need to be moved in order to get that way, almost like pushing them out into the river as big stepping stones to get us there. And that's kind of long range. But I think we also have to think short range too. And so that, the natural piece of that, Jim, comes back to this next priority in that closer up way.
Yeah. Yeah. And as we go through this 1-4-1-4, you will see that the top 1-4 paired together, as Brian just mentioned, is our long range development. Like it's the furthest out that we're thinking, right? It's possibly 7 years, 10 years, whatever it is. And that's the one, right? And then the 4, these strategies, the combination of that is our long range. But we also need to think in terms of our what? We need to think in terms of what's happening now, like something that we would use the phrase, what's our short range? And the challenge there is to drive with a 1 year focus. Is to drive with a 1 year focus. And I would say, I would even go back and say it like this, even more specific. Drive your church, drive your fellowship with a 1 year focus. Most churches, many churches that are struggling, that are plateaued, that are stuck, what they're missing is momentum. And what I have found, Brian, as we serve, and you and I've talked about this several times, they're missing a focus that lets them be able to see progress and momentum as a key component of moving forward, right? And so I would come back and say that it's got to be something that it's all about getting everyone pretty jacked up, getting everybody pretty pumped.
Yeah. And bringing everybody to, hey, what's this thing? And so today's tomorrow question for that is really what catalytic goal rallies everyone. And these questions are really meant for you as leaders to use today if you could. Some of you have staff meetings on Tuesday afternoons. And so, this catalytic goal, don't miss the, as Jim said, don't miss the words there. It's catalytic and it's a goal. It rallies everyone in the moment. And so what happens is we kind of see that, we put in here the 12 to 18 months, but it's a mid-ground focus that says, hey, listen, we're in short range, but we're still visionary. We're still thinking of it. And it's just kind of one big idea kind of for the mid-ground. I think my favorite of all time is from a few years ago, First Baptist Red Oaks missional meal plan. They did the calculations on rolling out their mission and said, hey, listen, what if we had one meal a month as a family, one meal a month where every family had another family in the community from the ball team that they hosted or went out with, and then one meal a quarter as a church family. So you kind of do the math on the number of families. It was somewhere over 12,000 meals for the year. And so they cast that vision as a mid-ground focus, a catalytic goal to rally everyone to say, hey, we have a 12,000 meal goal that every family that calls our church home has a meal together once a week. We're going to resource that. Every family has a meal with another family in the community that's unchurched, far from Christ. And then we have one meal a quarter together as a church family. And so what that did, it really brought it out. In fact, they rolled it into a second year. It brought everyone together, but it also inspired action. It wasn't just something we put on a wall and said, hey, this is our vision, short range, this is our 1 year strategy, and didn't everybody love it? It was something you had to do, and you couldn't escape that. And so if we're going to get out of the funk of just getting through this Sunday, we've got to think about tomorrow, today. That's long range, but it's also short range. There's that mid-round focus that comes in there, Jim. And I think that leads us to another action moment, right? We have to have activity and action on those things. If that's at number 4, is how do we move it forward?
Okay, so Brian, whether it is inspiring action through a meal, a focus for a meal, we've seen everything from gospel conversations and baptisms for a mid-ground focus, multiplying discipleship groups, number of invites, right? We could go on and on for what we've seen in this focus. this focus that we just mentioned is critical, but it falls short if we're not executing in 90-day
Yeah.
initiatives.
Yeah.
Right.
You
So,
got to do something, right?
You got to do something, right? And the best of those plans will fail if we don't, if we don't put our plans in place. And so the idea of executing in 90-day initiatives is truly that. It's coming and going, okay, within that focus, whatever it is, meals, conversations, baptisms, whatever it is, what do we need to do over this next 30 to 90 day window? What are some action initiatives? What are some key steps that we need to take, that we need to make in order to achieve that to be moving the needle? Let's say it like this: to be moving the needle toward that mid-ground focus, or to the success of that mid-ground focus, right?
Yeah.
And oftentimes we put the focus in place. Once again, very similar to putting the Beyond the Horizon in place. And we think everything is going to adapt to the focus in some, through osmosis or through some type of whatever. And if we're not being intentional, and if we're not truly building out a plan for that, then reality says it's not going to happen.
Yeah. And so I think the way we do that is to use this question, this today's tomorrow question for this one is, what key actions happen first? And Jim, this actually brings us full circle to the question you asked in the opening that was rhetorical, but I almost answered it because I missed the rhetorical nature of it. The difference between strategic planning and what we're talking about is visionary planning is most traditional strategic planning starts here, right? It starts with actions we have to do, and then you start building those things and hope that it gets you where you need to go.
That's right.
Right.
That's right.
And not to the detriment of anything else organizationally. We've seen that happen. The church work on something over here to the detriment of something over there. And so that's why I think long range and that navigate first and working back happens. And so, we have to think even in the mid-ground focus, okay, so what are the key actions that have to happen first? We call those foreground initiatives within the Horizon Storyline tool. You think of the time frame that happen every 90 days within that 12 to 18 months. And there's a short range strategic nature to them. Again, 4 of them that are there. I think about a vision rollout season, maybe even a training has to happen or some celebration. There was a church, most every church is not great at it because we get so movement focused, but like, what if we need to celebrate everybody who's stuck around? This was a church right after COVID. We just said, hey, listen, one of these 90-day actions is to celebrate everybody who's still connected, celebrate everybody who's still here. They had lost people through the years, but COVID kind of did that. So let's bring some celebration around that we're still together, that we're still here and in this room. And so those foreground initiatives really tie up the ability to move forward in that way.
You want to think tactical with them for sure, right? You want to think tactical and you want to think actionable, and that's where it really comes as a priority. That if you're not thinking that way, then if they're too big, then you're going to have a very difficult time at seeing your vision become to reality. Become a reality for sure. Brian, we want to kind of take a look at what we've kind of collectively said is probably one of the 5th and possibly one of the most important priorities of vision planning.
What's funny is, the paradox of having a list of priorities, right?
Sure.
But listen, the reality is you have to do it, right? You have to think of a bunch of priorities. Think of it like fingers on my hand. There's not one that's more of a priority than the other, depending on what's happening, but they all are priorities, right? And so you and I were planning this out, and we knew there was a list of maybe we could put another 4 or 5 different things up here.
Easy, right? Easy. Yeah.
We zoomed in on this one thing that is the key here, Jim, and tell us why this one thing made the list today.
Yeah, succeed by every week conversations. Succeed by every week conversations, and it's possibly one of, as we've shared, one of the most important things. There's one thing to develop, and the first 4 priorities are about developing your vision. Quite frankly, yeah, you could make the case that the fourth one has an execution bias to it for sure. But when we get to this fifth priority, it truly is about the accountability to make sure that that vision actually has success, or has a way forward, has its own priority within the systems and the strategy and the process of the church, everything that's there. If you're not focusing on every week conversations,
Yeah.
then you're going to be putting the vision at risk. And I would be that like dramatic,
Yeah.
right? If you're not having every week conversations, you are putting the vision at risk. And that risk is a success or failure risk. It
Right.
really is. And Brian, I know you love your Mr. Vision, and Mr.
Yeah.
Communicate our vision verbally and visually.
Yeah.
Yeah, talk to us a little bit about this question and just
Well,
give us an example of one that you've served.
yeah, for this one, that's today's tomorrow question is what progress
Yeah,
checkpoints are visible and verbal. And
yeah,
we've talked about this on our team as our team's out serving churches week in and week out with this, vision planning,
Okay,
vision
perfect.
framing. What we've seen is that the ones are successful.
Great. Anything else then?
Hey, somebody needs to mute
Oh, okay.
on there. We're enjoying your multitasking, which by the way we all are doing too, probably, right? The churches we've seen be the most successful are those that keep progress checkpoints, both visual and verbal, like they're in front of everybody. And so one of the things I've seen, and I love seeing this when I walked into church to do some follow-up work, I saw these big foam core with dry erase overlay, like big posters on the wall that has on the left, you can see St. John Lutheran in Cypress, Texas. Their 1414, their Horizon storyline has a dry erase overlay so they can update the 90 days. They can put names in. You can even see in there in that background vision a little bit, those green dots, yellow dots, red dots. They're keeping track of how things are progressing, and even have that in the middle of a larger vision frame. And these are on their office hallway. These are things that you cannot help but go past. They take them and bring them into the conference room with them and have these conversations. And so if we don't keep the vision visual or invisible, then it's hard to keep track of. And as leaders, we all get busy. And so again, kind of getting us out of that week to week rut. Does that, Jim, anything else you've seen in this practice of keeping vision visible?
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think at all levels, it's easy sometimes for us to kind of maybe think in terms of staff, but whether it's staff, whether it's your session, whether it's your board, whether it's your council, designing the agenda for inclusion. So every strategy gets its day of the month, where every strategy gets to give its significant update of progress. Once a month, that champion is going to really kind of show the progress that's happened in the last 30 days. Every initiative, every lead, every person who's running point with a lead has a weekly check-in, and is providing an update of progress. And I love the traffic light evaluation that just, the red, yellow, green. I love that's a great one to use, right? There's several others. We use that one the most probably, but to just really kind of go in and go, hey, we're going to almost retool everything from how we do our agenda. I mean, Brian, there was a church out in Colorado, I believe, that you and I, where they had their big church council meetings. They had a chalkboard.
Yeah,
where they had their
wall with the one.
They had a chalkboard wall with the 1414 on it to keep the entire council session, everyone calibrated. And I think that's what happens. It's a higher level of accountability, and it keeps you calibrated around this 1414 for sure.
Well, what's going to happen is you're going to have to set aside time to do this. And comes back to that tension of the urgent versus the important. And so we just got to put the need to plan for tomorrow today as an urgent piece of that. And a lot of times that happens, Jim, from us, an experience of just, we go in and as a vision planning retreat, we set up a retreat to do it. you don't want to drag it out sometimes, but there are times when you need a month over month process when there's some complexity happen. But most often it's, hey, listen, we just need a vision planning retreat. And we'll just kind of walk through kind of what it looks like for us. We do it typically. That's 2 6-hour days. Jim, I put the asterisk on there because that it doesn't often work out like that, or always work out like that, right?
Right. Yeah. Sometimes you get 3 hours on Friday night and maybe 4 on Sunday, right?
Yeah.
Who knows kind of how they end up kind of playing out, and you have to really work with that. Sometimes you are able to spread it out over more than just one retreat, but oftentimes a team is looking for, and many of you on here as a team, you're looking for a getaway. You're looking for, hey, how can we go out? What's a format that would allow us to go out, have a retreat, and move some, make some significant progress toward a bigger vision.
Yeah. A lot of times we're doing on-site facilitation in that too, Jim.
Sure.
We're walking through the catalytic piece of planning for tomorrow today is because you can have a strategic outsider there. You can have someone asking the questions. We can be the tool experts, the process experts, while they can be the content experts and participants in the room. Usually there's 9 or 12 leaders in there. Jim, I've tried this with 25. I didn't realize it was going to happen, but there were 25 people in the room. And it was a nightmare, because you can't be collaborative at that level, but that's about the sweet spot, isn't it? 9 to 12.
It is. And I think that certainly, as we've kind of even said for today, Brian, that what's most important is that you focus the time and energy, and you allocate the time, you get the people in the room, you begin to move them through that process. And sometimes there may be too many on a team. Sometimes there may be few. Sometimes you wish you could go longer. But you know what? It is that dedicating the time to something that is critically important that always gets bumped down on the list. Right. I have things on my to-do list that every day they keep staying there because they keep getting bumped down, right? And so that 1-4-1-4 gets developed. We do coaching calls as a follow-up as a piece of this too, 30 to 45 days or so of coaching calls, right? And then scaling it to your context. I love you've said that from the beginning, Brian. What we do is based upon, we're a church coming to a church meeting its need. We're a nonprofit consulting organization. We're going to do our best to do whatever it takes to serve that bride, right? And to help them within their context. And quite frankly, like we said from the get-go, bring a proven process that God allowed Exano to create and that God is using in a mighty way to help churches get synergy and movement and progress moving forward.
I love it, Jim. I love that there, the access there is fairly easy, especially if you're sitting out there and you're like, okay, I want to know more. How does this work? How can I be a part of that? This is a different QR code than the one from the beginning. This is just a way to, you want to talk to one of our team members. We have a team that's doing this week in and week out. Like, this is what we do, right? We're thankful to be able to serve the church in this way. We allow leaders to be participants, active participants, rather than having to be focused on facilitating and, keeping everything within the rails. I mean, it kind of takes some of that burden and puts it on us as a leader to say, hey, listen, here's how we do this. And so just kind of an easy way to connect there and have a conversation about what does that look like? How could I do that? How can my team get away for a retreat? This is the season. You mentioned that from the beginning, Jim. This is the fall.
Right.
If we wait till March or April to be thinking about the next year is almost already gone, right?
That's right.
And sometimes that's what happens, right? We're just surviving and we look up and it's already almost Easter and we're still just week to week.
It literally needs to be landing on teams' calendars, church ministry teams' calendars in late October to early January. And quite frankly, if that gets missed, then there's in all likelihood going to be a truly missed opportunity, or you're going to microwave it next summer, which is a whole nother webinar. Is what happens when you microwave vision.
Right. Yeah, we could do that. That could be our next webinar. Well, listen, everybody, thanks for jumping in here today. Thanks for joining the conversation as we think about planning tomorrow today. We're excited to see this movement in the local church. We're excited to see people think about what's beyond today. Jim, any last thoughts as we land the plane today?
No, I mean, not anything other than just reinforcing that that the difference between traditional strategic planning and what I would call modern, quite frankly, New Testament vision planning is that ability for leaders to prioritize the urgent and to navigate and to dream that faraway dream.
Yeah.
And so if I had one takeaway, it would be that first priority. Because if you don't start there, it's going to be a tough road ahead. And if you do start there and you follow this framework, I'm gonna say it, everything will fall in place.
I love it. God bless you, leaders. Thank you for leading with clarity first. We can't wait to hear the stories of what God is doing and jump in with you to see those dreams come to his fruition, not necessarily ours. God bless. Have a great afternoon.
Blessings, everyone.